They said he was crazy for blocking the road that morning. But just minutes later, everyone would learn who that old man really was and why he stood in the middle of the busiest lane in the capital. Washington, D.C. was just waking up from a damp night. The sky began to clear, and traffic along Pennsylvania Avenue started to swell like every other morning. Cars rushed past, chasing time. Workers, diplomats, and security officers busied themselves with routine. No one noticed the old man in a worn-out jacket and faded jeans suddenly stepping off the sidewalk and slowly walking into the middle of the street. He carried no ID. In his hands was only a wooden board with hand-painted red letters, "Stop. Danger ahead." His steps were steady, his gaze fixed straight ahead. He stood right between two lanes where cars were supposed to pass freely. Within seconds, blaring horns echoed through the air. Cars slammed their brakes. A man in a black SUV stormed out of his vehicle, yelling furiously. Others pulled out their phones to record. They uploaded the videos with titles like, "Crazy Man Blocking Traffic." But the old man didn't move. Even as a traffic officer approached with suspicion, he stood firm. His eyes weren't focused on a crowd, but on a point far ahead, just beyond the bend, as if he saw something no one else could. The officer raised his voice, ordering him to move aside. The old man didn't answer. He simply pointed at the sign in his hands. "There's danger," he said quietly, yet firmly. "Don't let any vehicle through." "Sir, you can't disrupt morning traffic like this," the officer replied. "If you refuse to move, we'll have to remove you." Still, the old man refused. Tension grew. More officers arrived. One of them, a female officer named Ramirez, began to feel something wasn't right. The man's eyes held something strange. Not fear, but something else. Like someone who knew his time was running out. The traffic control radio crackled with a warning. An official convoy was set to pass through that very street in a matter of minutes. The officers tensed. The road had to be cleared immediately. Yet the man remained. He didn't attack. He didn't shout. He simply stood his ground, refusing to take even a single step back. Ramirez glanced at her watch. 11 minutes until the motorcade. The road had to be open. But why did her chest feel tight, as if a dark premonition had begun to stir? The man gave no name. When asked repeatedly, he simply said, "Call me Harlan." No last name, no address, no ID. 2 officers tried to escort him off the road, but Harlan resisted without aggression. He didn't push, didn't yell. Instead, he lowered his body, placing both knees on the pavement as if planting himself to the ground. "I won't move," he said. "Not until it's over." The officers exchanged frustrated glances. From their perspective, this was just another stubborn elderly man. Maybe a war veteran gone off the rails. Maybe a conspiracy nut. The city had plenty of them. But the odd thing was, he wasn't dirty. He didn't smell of alcohol, and his words weren't rambling nonsense. They were precise, deliberate. Ramirez, standing a few steps back, watched as her colleague spoke over the radio. They were preparing to call in a patrol vehicle to haul the old man away. But something in Ramirez's gut held her back. She stepped forward. "Sir, can you tell me what kind of danger you're talking about?" Harlan looked her dead in the eye. His voice was calm. "You wouldn't believe me. Not unless you've seen what I've seen." Before Ramirez could press further, a black sedan with tinted windows slowed behind a police barricade. A man in a suit leaned out the window, holding a badge. "I need this road cleared now," he snapped. "High clearance vehicle coming through in less than 10 minutes. This can't wait." One of the officers responded, "Yes, sir. We're just dealing with." "I don't care," the man barked. "This is federal priority. Get him out of the way." As the man drove off, Harlan's eyes followed the sedan like a hawk. There was something in his gaze, a flicker of recognition. Ramirez saw it. A moment later, she asked, "You know who that man is?" Harlan didn't answer directly. "You should listen to your instincts, officer," he said softly. "You feel it, don't you? That something's wrong with this whole setup?" Ramirez hesitated. The others didn't. They moved in to grab Harlan, determined to drag him off the pavement by force if necessary. Suddenly, Harlan shouted, not in rage, but urgency. There's a trigger buried under that intersection. You clear this road, and you'll walk them straight into it. Everyone paused. Silence swept over the scene. Then, as expected, someone laughed from a nearby vehicle. "He's crazy," said a man recording the moment on his phone. Total lunatic. But for Ramirez, the laugh didn't land. She turned slowly to look down the stretch of road, then back to the old man on his knees. Her pulse quickened. Something wasn't right. And this man wasn't just some lunatic on the street. Officially, the motorcade was en route to a private hospital across the Potomac. The public was told it was just a minor delegation transfer. Nothing critical. Nothing sensitive. No threats reported along the path. It was the safest route in the capital, at least on paper. But what the city's security systems didn't pick up, Harlan had seen 3 days earlier. A white van, parked in the exact same spot where the road now stood empty. Windows blacked out. No company logo, just a dented license plate that didn't match the registry. Harlan had memorized it. The van hadn't been there for long, maybe 15 minutes. But that was all it took. Back in the present, Ramirez stood near the barricade, watching the old man with more attention now. The wind blew through the narrow street, brushing the edges of the police tape and lifting dust from the gutters. Sirens howled faintly in the distance, possibly from another unrelated call. But everything suddenly felt louder. Ramirez tapped her earpiece. "Dispatch," this is Unit 17, requesting a drone sweep or visual on the ground near 3rd and Monument. Check for any unusual underground disturbance or recent parked vans in the last 72 hours. Copy that, Unit 17. We'll pull traffic cam footage. Hold position. She looked back at her fellow officers. They were still arguing with Harlan, trying to cuff him gently without making a scene. One of them, Peters, was growing impatient. "I don't know what this guy's deal is," Peters muttered, "but this delays a federal convoy. We're the ones in trouble." "He's stalling," said another. "Probably just wants attention. Should have been locked up years ago." Ramirez didn't respond. Her fingers drummed restlessly on her belt. The wind carried the faint scent of engine oil, mixed with something else like ozone. It made her skin crawl. Suddenly, one of the tech units from downtown pinged her earpiece. 17, we found something. You want to see this?" A digital file appeared on her device. Still frame footage. Time-stamped 2 nights ago. A white van, just like Harlan described, pulling over at 2:14 a.m. A figure stepped out. Wore gloves. Opened the maintenance grate. Kneeling. Working fast. Then the van disappeared. No plate visible. No follow-up scan. Ramirez's eyes widened. She turned slowly toward the exact location where Harlan had planted himself. It was right over that grate, right above the spot where the man in the footage had worked. And the convoy was now 7 minutes away. Just 2 blocks away from a barricade, inside a small electronics repair shop, 2 young men named Kyle and Darius were glued to a laptop screen. They weren't law enforcement. They weren't part of any agency. But what they saw was enough to make their stomachs turn. The shop's front window offered a clear view of the street Harlan had blocked. But Kyle wasn't looking at traffic. He was scanning through frames of their personal rooftop security camera, an old system he'd installed himself, with high-range infrared. They'd set it up mostly to catch thieves or vandals. Instead, it had captured something else. "Pause at," Darius said, pointing at a frame. Kyle froze the screen. It showed a man crouching beside the sewer grate. The timestamp was from 3 nights ago, around 2:12 a.m. The man wore gloves, and in his hands was a small black device about the size of a shoebox. He worked with speed, precision. He didn't look like a homeless scavenger or utility worker. He looked trained. "That's not a toolbox," Darius whispered. "That's a signal relay." Kyle leaned back, shaking his head. "That's military grade. I've only seen gear like that on private contracts. Stuff the public isn't even supposed to know exists." "What do we do?" Darius asked. Kyle's eyes darted to the street below, where the argument around Harlan was escalating. "If we call 911, no one's going to believe 2 tech guys. But if we go down there..." They'll think we're crazy, too, Darius finished. A moment passed. Then they both stood. Meanwhile, down on the street, Ramirez was breathing faster now. She stared at the image on her handheld device, at the frame showing the gloved man by the grate. Every instinct in her body screamed that something was wrong. She looked at Harlan, who now sat cross-legged on the pavement, breathing slowly, eyes closed. It was as if he was meditating. No, waiting. She stepped closer. "You saw the van," she said. Harlan opened his eyes. "You've got 4 minutes left." From behind her, the voice of her supervisor barked through the radio. "Ramirez, clear that road. Now!" At that moment, Kyle and Darius burst through the police tape from the side street. They waved a tablet in the air, yelling over the noise. "We have footage. There's something planted under the street. You need to see this." 2 officers blocked them immediately. "No, wait!" Ramirez called out. "Let them through." The crowd, the noise, the tension, it all became a blur. Ramirez took the tablet, watched the footage, matched the angle, the time, the location. There it was, clear as daylight. The same grate, the same van, the same spot where Harlan refused to move. She looked up. The first lead vehicle of the convoy turned onto the avenue. Time was almost gone. The sound of engines echoed louder as the lead escort vehicle of the convoy turned the corner. Its sirens remained off, standard procedure for low-profile missions. Behind it, 3 more cars followed in tight formation. No one on the street, not even the police officers, knew who was inside the central black SUV. But Harlan knew. His eyes never blinked. He didn't flinch as the motorcade approached. He just watched, breathing shallowly, like a man watching a fuse burn down to the last inch. Ramirez clutched the tablet in her hand, her fingers trembling. She turned to her radio again. "Command, we have probable cause an explosive device at street level. I am requesting immediate halt on the convoy route. Repeat, immediate halt." Static. Then a voice answered sharply. "Negative, Unit 17. All clearances are confirmed. No threats logged. You are to proceed with crowd removal." She stared in disbelief. She looked around. No bomb squad. No backup. Just 2 civilians with footage, a so-called crazy old man, and a city running on schedules. Did they even watch the footage? Kyle asked. Darius replied, "They don't care. They're following protocol." Ramirez bit her lip, then stepped toward the middle of the street. Harlan was still there, still silent. "You said 4 minutes," she said, kneeling beside him. "That was 2 minutes ago." Harlan glanced at her. His voice dropped. "They planted it deep. It's not motion-triggered. It's remote. Whoever's watching is waiting for one thing." "What?" "For the car to reach the center." She turned to look again. The convoy was barely 50 meters away now. Ramirez raised both arms, stepping between the traffic and Harlan. "Everyone back off. I'm ordering an emergency halt." But no one moved. Her supervisor yelled into the earpiece, furious. "Ramirez, if you don't stand down right now, you're off duty." Her legs refused to obey. Her mind was screaming, every instinct roaring against what her command was telling her. She couldn't let that car pass the intersection, because if Harlan was right, and everything pointed that he was, then someone inside that SUV was walking into a trap, and the time to stop it was vanishing. 30 seconds. The first car passed safely. The second as well. The third vehicle, a sleek black SUV with a tiny flag barely visible in the sunlight, rolled forward. That was it. Harlan stood up. "I'm not letting it pass," he said. And then he started walking forward, straight into the path of the convoy. Gasps erupted from the crowd as the old man stepped directly into the path of the black SUV. The driver slammed the brakes just in time, tires screeching against the pavement. The vehicle stopped mere inches from Harlan's legs. The engine idled. The motorcade behind it stalled. Sirens blipped once, then fell silent. Officers began shouting. Guns weren't drawn yet, but hands hovered close to holsters. Every movement was tense. From inside the lead SUV, a sharply dressed man stepped out. He wore dark sunglasses and spoke through a communication earpiece. Clearly Secret Service. What the hell is going on here? Ramirez rushed to intercept him. This man believes there's a bomb planted beneath the intersection. We have video evidence of a device being installed 3 nights ago. I requested a halt. I was denied. The agent frowned. And you stopped a presidential convoy based on a civilian's hunch. It's not a hunch, she said, handing over the tablet. It's a calculated warning. You need to check under the street. Now. The agent barely glanced at the screen before handing it back. Protocol says this road is clear. My orders are proceed. Harlan took a step closer. Then your orders are flawed. The agent turned sharply. Who are you? I used to do your job, Harlan said, before you were even issued a suit. The agent hesitated. There was something about the way Harlan spoke. Not boastful, not angry, just certain, like a man who'd walked through war and knew exactly what he was seeing now. Inside the SUV, the rear window began to roll down. Everyone's focus shifted. Behind the tinted glass, a woman appeared, elegant, silver-haired, and frail. She wore a silk scarf around her neck and clutched her chest, breathing heavily. Her eyes scanned the scene, confused. One of the officers whispered to Ramirez, stunned, That's the president's mother." Ramirez's breath caught. It all made sense now. The unusual secrecy, the lack of press, the urgency. They were transporting the most protected civilian in the nation without anyone knowing. And someone had found out. Harlan stepped closer to the SUV, raising both hands in a non-threatening gesture. "I don't need you to believe me," he said calmly. "I just need you to stop that car and lift that grate." The Secret Service agent hesitated for the first time. More agents stepped out of the following vehicles. Orders flew across radios. Some of them started scanning the perimeter. Others argued. But the one in charge, the man who'd first spoken, was still frozen. Then from behind them, a low-pitched beep echoed from underneath the asphalt. It was faint, but Harlan heard it. He turned, eyes locking with Ramirez. They just armed it. The sound had lasted less than a second. A soft electronic beep, barely louder than a microwave timer, but it cut through the chaos like a siren in the void. Harlan's face hardened. He no longer needed to convince anyone. He pointed to the street beneath their feet. "Right there. Open it now." The lead Secret Service agent, now pale, shouted into his wrist mic. "EOD team, immediate deployment. We got a possible live device under the intersection. Evacuate the principal." 2 agents rushed to the rear door of the SUV. The elderly woman inside looked frightened now. She didn't ask questions. She simply obeyed as hands gently lifted her from the car and shielded her with ballistic shields. They moved fast, years of training kicking in. Within seconds, she was whisked into a backup vehicle and rerouted down a side alley. The convoy peeled back. Ramirez knelt beside the sewer grate, with Kyle and Darius holding the flashlight and tablet. She reached down and pried the cover loose. And there it was, a small black device, no bigger than a lunchbox, attached beneath the grate with magnetic clamps. A web of wires sprouted from the sides, woven with disturbing precision. A blinking red light pulsed steadily. Harlan spoke again, his voice low and clear. "That's a directional explosive. Shaped charge. Designed to aim upward into the undercarriage of a vehicle. Whoever set this knew exactly what they were doing." Darius leaned in. "Wait, so this wasn't meant to take out random traffic?" "No," Harlan said grimly. "This was surgical." From the edge of the street, the Secret Service agent stared at the device. Then at Harlan. "You knew it was here. How?" Harlan didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, he turned to Ramirez. "Check the third man in your traffic footage. Not the one planting the device. The one watching. He was across the street, disguised as a construction worker." Ramirez immediately swiped through the video frames. There he was, unmoving, holding what looked like a stop sign, except it had an antenna embedded in the shaft. She zoomed in on his face. Even through the low resolution, she could tell he wasn't local, and he wasn't watching traffic. He was waiting for confirmation. The footage had changed everything. Within minutes, bomb disposal teams arrived, locking down the area. FBI vehicles followed, The crowd was pushed back. Reporters kept at bay. The entire operation silenced with the efficiency of a classified response. But no one forgot the man who had blocked the road first. Harlan stood at the edge, quietly watching the team disarm the device. Still, he said nothing, until one technician finally looked up and nodded. "It's real," the agent whispered. The device was real. The threat had been seconds away from turning into a national tragedy, and the man who stopped it had no fingerprint in any civilian database. Back at the mobile command van, Ramirez sat beside a federal analyst who ran Harlan's prints manually through a separate, restricted military archive. They waited in silence as the system processed the data, scanning through decades of classified files. Finally, a hit. The analyst leaned in, narrowing his eyes at the screen. Subject identified. Harlan J. Royce, former explosive ordnance disposal specialist, Delta Group, Fort Belvoir. Clearance, black level. Served from 89 through 06. Officially retired after classified deployment in Eastern Europe. Last known status, off-grid. Declared inactive, no public record since 2013. Ramirez blinked. Declared inactive? Yeah, the analyst muttered. That's the polite way of saying they never expected him to come back. Outside the van, Harlan stood alone, back to the street, arms crossed. He watched the technicians load the defused device into a reinforced case. He didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He simply waited, like a soldier still on duty. One of the younger FBI agents approached him. You saved her life, the agent said. The president's mother. You probably saved half the team, too. Harlan turned to look at him. There was something in his gaze, calm but distant, like a man who had seen too much, and remembered every detail. "You think this is over?" he asked, voice gravelly. This was just a signal test. They weren't trying to blow up the street. They were testing the response. The agent frowned. Testing what? Harlan walked past him without answering. Ramirez caught up, falling into step beside him. "So that's it? You vanished for a decade, reappeared just in time to stop an attack no one else even saw coming, and now you're leaving." Harlan kept walking, slow but steady. "You don't get it yet," he said. They already knew her schedule. They knew the route. They knew the security layers, which means they've been listening. Ramirez slowed. "You mean someone inside?" "I didn't say that," Harlan cut in, "but you're thinking it." She looked down at the street where the bomb had sat hidden beneath the grate, where civilians walked every day, clueless, where death had been waiting in silence, and all of it a whisper away from vanishing into tragedy. Harlan finally stopped at the edge of the cordon. He looked out over the rooftops, as if he could already see the next move coming from some distant corner of the city. "I'm not staying," he said, "but I'll be watching." Then he walked off. No badge, no title, no uniform, just a man with a past, and a reason to keep moving. The city returned to motion, but beneath the surface, everything had changed. Ramirez sat in the precinct conference room, surrounded by agents who now spoke in hushed tones. The footage had gone straight to federal hands. Orders were passed down. Nothing about the incident was to reach the public. Official statement? Technical vehicle malfunction. Nothing more, but Ramirez couldn't sit still. She reviewed the footage again, frame by frame. She studied the man Harlan had pointed out, the fake construction worker with the stop sign. She zoomed in, ran facial scans. The results came back blank. No ID, no matches, no passport history. Whoever he was, he didn't exist. And that was more terrifying than any bomb. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a small scrap of paper. It had been slipped into her vest hours earlier. She didn't know when, but she knew who it was from. One sentence written in sharp, steady handwriting. "They'll try again. Different city, bigger target." The message didn't say where or when, but deep in her chest, Ramirez felt it. That same twisting tension she ignored the first time. And she wouldn't ignore it again. Elsewhere, across the river, a figure in a gray hoodie stood watching traffic from a rooftop. A laptop blinked beside him. Screen filled with cascading code. He clicked a video, footage of Harlan stepping into the road, and watched it again. Then he smiled just faintly. A voice behind him asked, "Did it work?" The man nodded. They reacted slower than we thought. But one variable we didn't account for. The old man, he won't be a problem next time. Then they disappeared into the stairwell, vanishing like smoke into city. Back in a quiet part town, Harlan sat alone in a rundown diner, sipping cold coffee. The TV above the counter played the news. No mention of anything that happened. Just traffic updates, campaign coverage, and sports. A young boy across the booth was staring at him curiously. Harlan looked up and gave the slightest nod. The boy smiled, and Harlan's eyes drifted again to the street outside, watching, waiting, tracing every shadow and every face that didn't quite fit, because he knew something no one else did. It wasn't over, not even close. The technician from the bomb squad gave one final nod before sealing the reinforced case. The device, cold, silent, but unmistakably lethal, was now secure, but the echoes of what almost happened still lingered in the air. Conversations around the site had turned from tension to disbelief. Some officers looked at the old man with guilt, others with awe, and the rest still couldn't decide what to believe. Ramirez walked up to the edge of the scene, where Harlan stood, back facing the cordon, his gaze fixed on the empty street, now cleared of traffic and fear, as if listening to something only he could hear. "You save her life," Ramirez said softly. Harlan didn't answer. Not with words. Instead, he looked at the exact patch of pavement where the black SUV had nearly passed. It was still marked with a faint outline of chalk, left by the bomb squad when they mapped the blast radius. According to their estimates, had the car moved 10 feet further, the device would have detonated at its most lethal point, sending a focused blast straight to the floor of the vehicle. There would have been no survivors. No warning. No second chance. One of the senior federal agents approached them, expression hard to read. In his hand was a printed still from the drone footage. Capturing Harlan in the moment, he blocked the SUV with his body. A single frame that now meant the difference between life and death. "We reviewed your record," the agent said. "You weren't just EOD. You were the one they sent to clean up when the other teams couldn't." "I was," Harlan replied. "You walked away after Sarajevo. Disappeared." Harlan didn't move. The agent studied him a long moment, then extended the photo. "You're not under arrest. You're not even being questioned. But if you ever want your badge back, we clear it." Harlan took the photo, looked at it for 1 second, then handed it back. "I'm not here to go back," he said. "I'm here to keep them from getting ahead." As the agent walked off, Ramirez stayed by his side. "So what happens now?" Harlan turned toward her. "They didn't fail," he said. "They adapted. This was never meant to succeed." Ramirez furrowed her brow. Then why do it at all? He looked down at the sidewalk to see who would respond, who still notices, who still stands in the road when everyone else moves aside. Across the city, sirens wail for a different emergency. Life resumed. Traffic flowed. And somewhere, someone began planning the next one. But for now, just for today, the blast didn't happen, because someone did stop to notice. And he never needed anyone to believe him. He just needed them to stop.